wook+live.
Hey,
You
there you guys are.
totally see it. That works. Hey guys,
everybody
welcome
is.
back to wook+live. We got a fun show for you tonight. We have a great guest tonight.
Have you ever said that we don't have a fun show tonight?
Yeah, there's been a couple of times.
We strive in honesty around here. Every once in a while, we're like, this is a mediocre show at best tonight. Man. If you got something better to do, check your calendar.
You might want to see if Different Strokes reruns are on.
Exactly. With Kevin Hart somehow. Come on. This can't be happening. But I digress. Let's turn it back over.
I give them props for doing it live. It was like a theater type thing. Like, you never know what's going to happen live without a net. So that's always fun. And those fucking commercials were amazing. Like, if you saw the promos and the commercials and the ads, those were very wook+y and brilliant. I love those.
Modesty.
Very fun.
They're almost at the level of wook+.
Almost good enough. Not quite, but still fun.
We're waiting for the consulting fees.
But we do have a really fun show tonight. I mean, let's get back to that.
We were having a really good conversation in the green room, so I don't want to fuck around too much. I want to get our guest right in so we can continue these natural conversations about this band we like. But tonight's guest is Mr. Jake Beckman. How you doing, Jake?
Hey, how are you guys?
What's going on?
Man, my man, how are you? I appreciate the sign, dude. Yeah, it's good to see you guys. How are you?
Oh, guess who else decided to show up?
What's up, there you are.
Hey.
Showing up late. Damn.
My bad.
So I want to do this backwards before we go into all the pleasantries and you tell us what you've been up to and everything. I want to go back to this thread of conversation we were talking about with these 1-1 shows, because you kind of touched on this. We're jumping right into the middle of the show here. But you touched on this in the green room, and I've never been to a 1-1 show, but it's something I'm super intrigued about. It's kind of like this unique anomaly that happens every once in a while. And you were at least you were saying 1-1-11. I'm not sure if you've been to other 1-1 shows, but I wanted you to go into this idea you were talking about.
There was a 1-1 show in Miami, as I recall, and then the 1-1-11 show. Yeah, no, I was just saying that it's always like, it's at the end of a run, it's always difficult to muster up the strength to do it again. I feel that way in Vegas too. By the last night of the run, it's like you're just dead. But it's always worth it. You get your shit together. You don't buy the couch tour pass, and you get to the venue, and the band always delivers. I do think that the vibe in the venue, at least 1-1-11, it was a long time ago now, but felt kind of muted, like pre-show. But I think I really liked that show, and I think that the band kind of flipped it on us and was ready to go. I always think when they have something big planned, like a spectacle for New Year's or Halloween or something, there's so much anxiety that it's clear to me that they feel leading up to executing on their idea that they've been working on, that I always prefer when the big night is in the middle or the first night of the run sometimes.
And then they can exhale a little bit and just
get it out of the way. Yeah,
have a show. What was 12/31/10 then?
12/31/10 was the meat stick, wasn't it?
So man, that's embarrassing. I was actually at that show. This was in the days where I used to not just do runs. Now it's assumed if I'm at a show, I'm just at that run. But
I'm glad I got that right. I pulled up .net immediately. Yeah. So why don't we?
So people were probably really fucking burnt out after that night. That was a raging night.
Yeah, it was a raging night is a way to put it, for sure. It was
whip out the meat stick all night. It's tough.
It was a really, really good New Year's, and especially at that stage of the comeback, it felt important at the time. I think that people still look back on the Meat Stick Nears as a favorite, at least in my crew.
It's my favorite personally.
It just was
at least a 3.0 New Year's.
So creative, so fun, and like theatrical.
It was the first explosion of Broadway Trey. The whole Broadway Trey thing kind of got played out, but at that point, it was like fucking brilliant.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that because like now I feel like the band, or maybe Trey, but the band by extension has gotten themselves into like a bit of a pickle where
how far do you go?
They have to keep topping themselves every year. Like they've set up this system where they have to, like, they can't just like play a great 3-set show with, you know, some big balloons that drop at midnight or whatever.
I mean, they could, and it would be fucking great for
you
some
would
of
bitch
us.
about it. You would though. You would be upset if they didn't do something.
I think 90% of the fans would bitch and moan, which just goes to show you how.
But they would anyway. They will no matter what. Maybe not 90, but at least 70% will, no matter what. So,
but don't you think it wouldn't that be kind of cool in a way though?
Yes.
Especially it was like I thought that at Dick's. Because I haven't been to a bunch of Dick's, so going this year after so many Dick's runs where they have the spelled out sets or the gags or whatever, I was like, oh, everybody's, what are they going to do? Are they going to do it? Is it the last show? Is it a big farewell? Whatever. And then they didn't do any gimmick and they just raged. And
well, they catapulted.
Yeah, but they didn't do anything spectacular. Like it was no big celebration or no big like, yay, 10 years or really.
Where are my fireworks?
Other than Trey
Pens is on a roll, by the way. I was gonna hand out some merch tonight to just people that catch my eye, and she is definitely getting something. I'm definitely sending her something because she just nailed it twice. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, T.
No, that's okay. It's always worth cutting me off for something Ben says anyway, so that's fine.
It's incredible.
But I know she's totally right. Like, if Fish's gimmick was playing a great show, people would be upset that it wasn't big enough. You know?
It wasn't great enough. They need to be greater.
I think this one was a little bit like that, right? I mean, there was a level of just kind of going out into the crowd. Right, there wasn't a lot of hoorah, and there wasn't
people
a lot.
Liked it though. I thought that was very well received.
That's what I'm saying. So there is a level of minimalistic,
except for the people with the hockey sticks and the
except
truck.
for the people on the rail. They didn't like it so much.
Oh, easy. But I will say, like, that's an interesting, you know, like after sending the clones and the whole thing and the rescue squad. I mean, let's be honest. Maybe it's definitely time to minimalize this thing a little bit, right?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. They're not going to be elevated in the air this year.
Surely. Although we just went pyro.
Dude's like, fuck that. You're staying on the ground.
I mean, we did just go pyro at Vegas, though. I will say that. And I was just completely scared the entire Vegas thing, especially when they started blasting pyro off.
I was worried when they beamed them down, something was going to happen. I mean, was worried.
They weren't actually beamed down.
They were under the stage coming up.
What do you mean they didn't beam down?
Dude, my comic came in.
I saw it.
It's really, really cool.
Yeah, but I think going back to the Broadway thing, though, too, is like, you know, we were just talking about Hands on a Hard Body. I mean, I honestly think the clone New Year's could have been so great. I think it's kind of diminished a little bit because it'll always be known as Trey hanging there. And
it's 100% diminished. The set list was cool too.
It was cute. I was so cute.
After seeing a Petriture and a Mercury and Steam was awesome. But like after seeing all of these like fluffy things to get that set list in 2019 was great. But the anxiety and the stress of the malfunction and then the humor and the execution at the end and the way it's remembered and how easy it is to graphically represent. That's a big thing with Fish history is you could have 4 blocks with 4 different colors and a green one up and everyone across the scene knows exactly what it is just with 4 squares. So it's, I mean, yeah, I don't know if it's diminished or now legend, but I'm kind of curious though. We're talking about like our, what we want out of a New Year's. Jake, have you ever like envisioned what your perfect New Year's was? Or an easier cop out is out of the New Year's you've seen, what was the favorite like style?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I I think for me, a perfect New Year's run builds on itself, first of all. So like it has to come out of the gate really hot. I think
Buried
that
alive.
like a Barry Alive, sure. But like I'm talking like a deep late early set gin, like maybe like an old school like 15-minute bag to open. You know, maybe it's like a punch you in the eye kind of night. And then, like again, for me, New Year, I always feel like the New Year's run is my favorite like time of Fish, but the New Year's Eve show is usually my least favorite big show of the year.
And the 29th and 30th are some of my favorite shows I've ever seen. They seem
Totally.
to always do great.
Totally. I mean, my first show when I was a little kid was the 30th in 1997 at the Garden, and so the 30th is always the special night for me, and I think scene wide, it's just because it's like the anticipation that Fish builds on.
Best Fish origin story. I don't mean to interrupt the best Fish origin story, but like going with mom to this.
Oh yeah. My mom took me and my brother to 12/30/97 at the Garden. My mom is not ahead. She like Joni Mitchell maybe, but like my brother and I went to sleepaway camp in Maine, and all the counselors would like disappear. They like went to it and like all the festivals like in August, and so like we learned about Fish when we were like at like sleepaway camp. And so I was 9 and my brother was like 12, I think 13, and was really into like Puffy and Biggie at the time. I remember like that was his scene, but he heard about like this song Tweezer from this counselor, blah blah blah, and he wanted to go see this band, and my mom took us.
Ryan? Was the counselor named Ryan?
He might have been. There was definitely a hacky sack or two involved, maybe a lacrosse stick.
Right.
So my mom was like, sure, I'll take you to this concert at Madison Square Garden, and then like we walked into fucking 12/30/97, and she was like, don't touch anything, don't eat anything, like don't go too far. It was actually really cool. We met these people. It was unthinkable concept at the time, but like we met these people that were sitting in front of us, and they had all met on Fish tour. They were not, they didn't live near each other. They were friends because they saw each other at Fish concerts, and this was like before cell phones, and went from city to city, and they meet up at the shows. And it seemed like the craziest concept in the world. Of course, it's not. But like we met these people.
Not anymore with social media and shit. Like,
right, but like but like the whole scene, like that was the scene. I was just a little kid, obviously, I had no idea. But these people like gave us like these egg shakers. They were super kind. They like gave us these egg shakers and like kind of, I think, like took us under their wing a little bit. And my mom was not having any of it.
Did she ever take you to a show again, or did you have to wait a little bit?
No, I mean she's okay with it. I mean, she thinks it was her biggest failure parenting still, but like my dad has been to a bunch of shows. My dad likes the Dead, and he gets it, and just have to coach him on some of the lot lingo. He's like in his 60s and was not a hippie necessarily. So
he was like, what exactly is a wook, son?
Yeah, what's a wook? Just be like, all right, listen, if anyone says, dank nuggets, just, X, Y, and Z.
Don't eat the right
parents. My parents totally respect that my brother and I have this addiction, but they don't get it at all. Like it's not even beginning to comprehend it, but they like that we have it. Like they're happy for us. But
yeah,
it's so hard for them to understand, I feel like.
I think that's always like that from the outside looking in. It's just, I feel sorry for our parents because, it's a beautiful thing.
It always is interesting to me though about like, are there other scenes out there that are this like this? You know what I mean? Like I know there's hardcore scenes like this, but there's so many different
Insane
things.
Clown Posse, there's a lot of similarity between Insane Clown Posse's fans.
Exactly
like what
I
other
was
things
thinking.
have like a wook plus equivalent, right? You know what? Actually, I heard was Hanson apparently has a crazy following, like underground following, where like people go.
I know a woman who's seen him over 100 times.
Yeah, right. Like they have like fans, like Fish has fans that have like
Ben's love. Speaking of Ben, she's a big Hanson fan. I know for sure. Like, there's a lot of actually Hanson has some dead connects in some ways. Speaking of which,
did Mbop.
Yeah, they've got
some
dead
machine.
Oh, definitely, that totally happened. But I do think, yeah, Hanson, and I think like the other. Like maybe the modern version of this would be the K-pop stands, you know, for you know.
I had to mute them.
Harry Styles, man. 100%.
Yeah.
Harry Styles. I don't know how much exposure you have to how wild people are for Harry Styles right now, but
watermelon sugar.
Yeah, no, dude, I'm telling you, like, you know, some of this footage from his shows looks like, you know, like a radio friendly version of a Fish following, like just rabid devotion.
He's been like, people have been asking him questions. He told some chick to break up, some other chick to quit her job.
But no, but it's great.
I'm not just saying like sizable followings, because there's a lot of artists out there that have way more sizable followings than Fish. I don't, maybe I'm overplaying it because of like how much it means to me personally, but it feels like there's like an interconnectedness, at least in the scene to some extent, or it feels small. Like it by numerically, it's large, but it feels small. Like I feel like I know people that even if I don't know them when I'm at shows, and you could go up to a complete stranger, like it'd be like, you know, 12/30/97 and have a whole fucking conversation about a date 20 years ago.
Sure.
And just, you know what I mean? And I don't know if that level of
maybe like a Jimmy Buffett kind of scene.
Like the parrot heads. I can see that.
Yeah, like or like you know, I think there's even like a pretty rabid and vocal scene around like Dave Matthews Band and some like I'm going through in my head the bands like Fish that have channels on Sirius. Like I'm thinking like Pearl Jam. I'm thinking Pearl Jam. You know, I'm thinking like Bruce Springsteen.
Garth Brooks. We were talking Garth Brooks the other day.
Garth Brooks. I'm ignorant on a lot of Garth Brooks, and so I would love for y'all to educate me.
He had an achy breaky heart, right?
Well, geez, don't be blasphemy. This guy's over here blasphemy all the time on Garth, man. Garth's a real one. I personally perform as a Garth Brooks impersonator. I'm known as Garth Wooks. It's something I'm still developing it. I'm still developing.
Have we had that in a bit yet?
No, that's coming. It's coming soon.
Why don't you pitch bits like this and you're going to be greenlit all the way through? I mean, come on.
There we go. That's how we go. But I do think like you go to Garth Brooks has like they have to keep having shows, right? Because they keep selling out the venue to the point that there's like 14 Garth Brooks shows in one night.
But
so it ends
Garth
up being
Brooks
like
do the same show every night that he does that?
Pretty much
14 shows in a night.
He actually does 14.
No, he does
in a
2
row.
shows a night.
He does 2 shows a night. That dude is an absolute machine.
2 sets? 2 sets?
He does 2 shows.
No, 2 shows.
So a 1 set show and then a 1 set show. Okay.
People jet. That's the afternoon. That's
a
the
3-hour
matinee
show followed by a 3-hour show.
Correct. He does a matinee.
Can you imagine like Fish doing something like that, and there being like separate tickets for each show, and then there being like you have to exit the venue, and then everybody has to
It's the same 20,000 people. They literally
so why doesn't he just fucking go to a big farm? Because you know all these are in like rural America, and have a fucking weekend festival and just have 100,000 people in there.
Hey, have you seen how well these country music festivals go? By the way, oh boy, just look
was that festival where the people die? Was that a country?
No, that was Kylie, somebody's husband.
I'm really focused in Fish, by the way. Like I literally have blinders. I'm like, wait, there's other bands out there?
No, but I think that's a good point. It was the festival's called Astro World. It was in Houston. It was Travis Scott.
Travis.
Right. So I think that's actually like a good example. Like it's really hard to pull off a festival. Even a band that pulls off festivals successfully all the time, like Fish. You know, we all know how it went last time, and they haven't tried it again since. It's been a long time since Curveball. Like, even if you have the institutional knowledge, it's a clusterfuck between all the permits and approvals and all the moving pieces. And so I'd imagine it's just like too much work unless you're really devoted. It also makes you appreciate like what Fish does for us to do that, you know, as often
I feel
as
like
they
the
have.
residencies are also kind of killing the festival because, you know, the idea of like the Baker's Dozen, and they haven't done that level of it yet, but they always like 4 nights at MSG, 4 nights at MGM, 3 nights at all these summer ones. Like they kind of turn into festivals without all the clusterfuck, right? Like when a bunch of us were at Deer Creek together this summer and doing a 3-night run in, you know, some, you know, crazy ass town like that, it feels like a festival, kind of. Just with the hotel instead of sleeping in a tent.
Totally.
Casinos suck though. Casinos just, I'm not a fan, man.
There is, so yeah, 100%. I think Atlantic City is probably another great example of a run that feels like a festival these days. But I think like and I think even like the band was playing it kind of like a festival. They put out like an info packet for a run like that with like a bunch of jokes in it, like they usually do in the FAQ. But you know, the thing about like a festival itself is the insularity, right? Yes, it is. It is time for Indio. That's exactly right. Indio was a great festival, man, and that was cool. I stayed at a hotel actually. I did one of those like packages, and it was so awesome because I was like in the pool, and then I took a shuttle to the show. That was great. No, you know, no disrespect to anyone who camped at Festival 8. I'm sure that was a blast too. But I love doing a hotel festival. But like, to my point, like that wasn't for me an insular experience, right? Like Super Bowl, Magna Ball were like self-contained in a way that like
you walked in
run.
the door and you didn't need to do anything except get a wristband, and you were free.
Yeah, and also like, you know, I have memories. Magna Ball was like just a lovely time in my experience, and like I have memories, like very fond memories of like just like going with my buddy to get a cup of coffee in the morning, like walking to the coffee thing, like that's like a memory for me. Like we see Fish to like collect memories, right? To look back on. We listen to the shows to like relive those memories, right? So at a festival, you're always making memories, right? And I feel like when you like go to Vegas or you go to Deer Creek, maybe if like you're with your boys and you're like staying at a house or in a hotel together, sure, but like, you know, even the mundane things at a festival feel like miraculous almost. Like, oh my God, like I'm in this big field and I found hot coffee and a bagel, you know?
One of my best memories of Clifford Ball is
stumble upon the place where you can wash your hair or like splash water in your face and it's like 108 degrees out, and then it's like the oasis. You're like, holy shit, I feel so much better.
One of my best memories of Clifford Ball was getting up at 6 a.m. to hit the freshies with the spotter pots right after the guy cleaned it.
Yeah, you know, like you have all kinds of random one-off like things that stick with you from festivals. And like, yeah, like I have memories from runs, but like there's something very like familiar, like, you know, the people that I met and that I camped near at those festivals, like those are like people like different than people like just like who I stood near at a Vegas show, you know, the MGM or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, festivals are cool.
I guess is how easy it is to like go back to that memory, right? Like it's kind of the same effect that the New Year shows get. They're like you were saying, they're not typically the best shows of the runs, but like if I talk to you about when you first saw, you know, the hot dog first emerge out and the eruption and the meat stick, we're all there instantly because we were there, and it's like you remember that singular moment. I feel like that's the case with festivals. You could just draw back instantly, whereas like, oh, that night in Vegas, it's kind of like you have to go through your Rolodex
for sure,
or that night at Deer Creek or wherever.
Go through your Rolodex.
Well, because I also think like a big part of what makes the festival set so special is like the anticipation of them with very little else to do, right? Like if you're at the MSG run, you know, you're doing tons of shit before 8 p.m. You know,
dinner and
dinner, lunch.
Drink.
I've like gone to museums with out of town friends who were in town for the show. You know, like I've like, you know, hung out with my nephew, you know, like real person stuff before the show. You know what I mean?
You also, because you live there though. Like,
well, sure.
For those of us traveling that are just going to be at like a Wook hotel until showtime, it doesn't feel that much different.
But there's still like stuff to do, right? Like I get like I remember at Magna Ball sitting around our campsite, we all got the Ball Street Journal. And we the band's more relaxed at festivals. Yeah, absolutely. And so are we. But like, you know, they're both we are more relaxed because we've been hanging out all day, but also I feel like there's like everyone gets, at least I do, this nervous energy before the fish show. Like you're waiting around for fish, and like when you wake up in the hot sun at Magna Ball and it's 8:30 and you know you have to wait like 12 hours, and you know on Sunday there was no afternoon set. I remember had to wait all day, and so what do? You just figure out how to kill the time the old-fashioned way. You get wasted.
You start drinking.
Yeah, sure. But like we were doing the crossword puzzle on the Ball Street Journal, and I'll always remember that. Like that had nothing to do with the show. That was just life.
Yeah, speaking of life and like just making memories, like this has actually been a time when, during all this COVID situation and things we've been through, like some of those memories you think would have been harder to make. And here's something that like for me, I'll always remember from that time is the thread, and in particular the thread's donation and that moment at the Beacon Jams. And it was really just we've talked about kind of community, we've talked about kind of how just these disparate people come together and like have something special come from it, including even the band themselves, but like a perfect example is what happened with the thread, and what was able to be accomplished from that. And I know that was something you kind of spearheaded it with a couple of us. We just kind of started throwing it out there that we should, and it just ballooned. So tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So the thread, I started a Twitter thread inadvertently that everyone hated. Everyone either hated or loved, because I figured out how to beat Twitter and show up in everyone's timeline every day, because everyone just kept replying to the same thread. And so I'm sorry if anyone out there saw that and didn't like it.
Thread, and I love that I'm not in it.
No, that's cool. Listen,
I support you. I think it is badass, but I got in there and I got the fuck out of there. So
no, and I totally get that and respect that. And so like the thread was like this thing that for me personally, and I think some other people, was a very helpful outlet during some of those darker days. Yeah, this is Jake back in Manhattan. What's up,
Absolutely, that damn.
Maybe we should have started in the middle of the show. Maybe that whole meta idea of jumping into the middle of the show. Now we're at the start of the show. Yes, this is Jake.
Back in Manhattan.
Take your click, fish feed, the thread.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, I
media in general.
I do a lot of Twitter because I hate myself, apparently. No, so I made a very non-fish related thread. I was actually, my wife and I had our second child over during the pandemic, and I was going to one of her first doctor's appointments in the city with her, and I just tweeted that I was in the city, and like everyone was talking about how the city was like crime infested, et cetera, and I just did this stupid tweet, and all you people, or a lot of people, jumped on it and kept talking about fish on it, and so
that wasn't even a fish tweet, though, right?
No, it had nothing to do with fish. No, I'm that good.
Right, and then people started recruiting people. They would like start tagging or naming people in the thread to get
some
more people into the
willing
thread.
Participants. Like during the Beacon Jam, someone, maybe you, Famber, pulled in Don Hart. Which was, and then he shot the shit with us for a very long time, and over the course of many weeks. And because we were chatting with Don Hart, I went back and listened to the Full Time Turns Elastic arrangement on one of my get outside and walk around the block walks, and was able to revisit some of the stuff that maybe I thought was like not fishy enough for me in the past, and it's really beautiful. But the donation itself, obviously Trey was raising money for the Divided Sky Fund. And I don't know whose idea it was, but I don't think it was my idea initially, but
I think Jen is in there, and
somebody was like, "We need to get a shout out," is how it started, and we're like, "Yeah, maybe if we donate enough money, we'll get a shout out for the thread."
Thread is a great song. What's up? Shout out Andy. Shout out Jump Radio.
Jump Radio forever.
Andy, we're gonna do that simulcast, by the way. I ran it by the guys in charge, and they were like, "That sounds dope." So let's talk.
Anyway, so collectively we decided it would be a good idea to try to like use this vehicle to do something good for the fish community, and because Trey was telling us that this was the good that we were doing as a community. People, I guess, because I started the thread, people started like sending you. Yeah, people were like, "What's your Venmo?" And I was like, "Oh." And then like, so I was like, "Okay, I guess like I'm the guy." And so
you're the guy.
So
the guy.
I was the guy. So then all of a sudden, like, people were sending me like, $20, whatever, blah blah blah. And then some people, like, all of a sudden I had like $1,000 in my Venmo from people. And I kind of thought that it could snowball. So I started this thing like 10 years ago. I co-started with Josh Sternberg, Brian Reese, Colin Jones, this email list called Journofish.
We actually talked about that last time you were on this show.
Yeah. So it's just like
amazing crew.
Yeah, it's a great group of people. It's just like it's the fishy people in media. It's like an email list that people have, that's grown over time as people have added people to it. But so I think there are like 60 people on there or something. And so I just kind of took this idea to them, and between us and between the email list and the Twitter group, it was within sight to raise well over $5,000, and tried to figure out like a nice number to give. And so figured out between myself and the group and a couple of people who helped me get there, we gave $5,555 and 55 cents. Shout out Mike Gordon. And Trey read it. Trey read the thing I wrote on Twitch, and it made him tear up a little bit. And so I've got that feather in my cap that I made Trey emotional for once. No, it was very cool. It was a very cool moment. And, personally for me, like, just, full transparency, like, it was a tough time. And, I had, young kid and another really young kid. And those Beacon shows gave me a lot to look forward to. And doing something like that was a great outlet. And then having Trey recognize the group like that, it was not, I mean, I sent the money, but I did not. That money was everyone's, and I just got nominated. So it was a very cool experience, I think, for everyone to participate in that and to be recognized by Trey. And then, I understand that they're having a little bit of difficulty maybe getting the facility up and running for the Divided Sky Fund. I think they bought a place, and then the community
said no, right? Right.
Yeah, so hopefully they figure that out. But it was cool to be able to help, and it's an important cause, of course. And so, anyway, that was my involvement with it, and it was accidental, but it was great for me, and I think other people too.
Yeah, it's really nice.
And it's just kept going, and it's just kept going. Yeah. And I love, it's just always the topic of conversation. Again, you're right. There's a level of, every once in a while folks get, oh my God, I love, my favorite comment, whether it's in a group chat or on Twitter, is like, oh my God, I accidentally got in the thread for a second. It's
like a fucking suction cup.
But again, if you want to find a corner of fish Twitter and of Twitter at all, that's a positive, solid place where you can talk fish. You can talk about whatever you're doing in life. It's a supportive, awesome place that's really, in fact, done more like cool things beyond, really just the Divided Sky deal. So like, I'm a thread stand forever. Because
I'm going to cut you off in like 5 seconds, though.
You already
I'm
got the
sorry.
date, Sam.
but it's
God
No,
damn,
so I wouldn't recommend that anybody who values their notification sanity join this thread. You're forewarned, but it is, I think, the thing about this group of people that's kind of self-selected into this kind of social experiment is that it's entirely without judgment, and it's entirely positive. Like if you won't feel like you want the dopamine of 10 favorites on a tweet, you could just like send it to the thread, and you know that like everyone's gonna be like saying what's up and engaging with you and talking to you. It's just like a nice community.
And we've all done dumber
um,
shit to get that dopamine. So I mean, jumping on the thread for a couple of weeks isn't that bad in the grand scheme of things.
Exactly. I think that like I get a lot of joy out of kind of like connecting people, just like kind of who I am as a person. And this was like kind of by accident, but it was like a really nice experience for me.
I can totally relate to that. I can see that. Hey, so these guys convinced me that the format they like is to interrupt the interview with a commercial break. And
Cool.
I run a democracy here, so here we go. I mean, we'll see on the other side.
welcome to Bleeps.
And bloops, saying bleeps and bloops are more important than the Beatles.
I'm saying Kraftwerk's more important than the Beatles for popular music today.
Bleeps. What do European bleeps sound like?
European bleeps are a little more pretentious. They think that their bleeps are the bleepiest, you know what I mean, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like on.
Ridiculous by Joe Anastasio. Available in all finer head shops. Read the fucking book.
One, two, three.
That was the last one. Had to string them all together.
You didn't string them all together. No,
I should have strung them all together, but I didn't know what we were gonna do.
Famer, how do I get invited onto Bleeps and Bloops?
Dude, you're on the list already.
Well, top of the list.
I got a lot to say about the Bleeps and the Bloops.
I knew you would. Of course,
Yeah.
You are on the fast track. You are on as soon anytime you are ready, buddy. Give us a shout.
I'm down.
Yeah,
we're
off to
excited
you,
about that.
hosthood. You can just have the show.
Yeah, we need to. We might need a co-host, another co-host.
Coming never.
Hey, easy, Kev. Easy, Kev. Don't you be shooting down our dreams.
Exactly good.
It's so dramatic.
Yo, I'm intrigued. Was that like a new Ridley Scott movie or something?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
We just are gonna keep throwing out these trailers for shit we're gonna do on the channel, and you'll never know what's actually coming or not.
You already got bleeps and bloops in the Brad and Chad file. Oh man, that's
I hate when
hard.
that happens.
Brad and Chat's gonna happen, man. Would we have made that dope of a trailer if it wasn't gonna happen?
Sure.
Doesn't sound like us.
We're a little wookish around here.
But so see, to bring it back, this is the unenviable position that Fish finds themselves in, where they have to keep topping themselves. Right? It's hard. It's hard.
It is.
Gives you some appreciation that they even try.
You know, I gotta wait for him out of it. On New Year's Eve, they do a 3-set show, but the first set is acoustic, and then they do 2 electric sets.
They'll get flamed. They'll get
that wouldn't be good.
That
would not be good. If we were actually doing a bracket to figure out the worst,
I have a great idea. Maybe the first set is 90 minutes of drum space, then they leave. Then the second set, they bring Donna on. She does all the vocals.
Hey, we did want to ask you.
Yoko, she lives in New York.
Yeah.
We did want to ask you. We've been, in our prior show, we've sent in some audition tapes for the Martin Scorsese Dead biopic. I did my best, Brent Midland.
You did the best, Brent Midland.
Oh, easy.
You should be expecting a call, really.
Oh, geez. Kev
we should fucking send that into casting. You gotta help me find a casting agent.
All I did, speaking of Warren, we were talking about Warren. All you really got to do is kind of a version of Warren, but then just really kick up like the amount of drugs that you've done, right? So like you just got to get your eyes really back, and then you just really just tell Mr. Phantom please so tune.
Man, you got Brent's eyes. It's so crazy.
I was just gonna say it's all in the eyes, man. Doing a good Brent is all in the eyes.
Exactly. So we're hoping for that. So who would you cast? Like, have you been thinking about this? What's your opinion on this whole biopic thing?
I don't know who I would cast.
How do you like Jonah in this Jerry situation? Are you gonna wait and see?
Oh, who am I casting as Donna?
Oh, Donna. I was curious about Jonah Hill or just like
Jonah Hill. Oh, so I actually saw a thing today that made me feel like. So I'm skeptical, but I saw a clip of Jonah Hill on Fallon where he said that this was an idea that he had. He saw like an old picture of Jerry and had this crazy idea. Like, why hasn't anyone done a movie about Grateful Dead? Like, I should play Jerry Garcia. And then he like said that he spent like a week trying to talk himself out of it and then decided not to and told his manager, who also manages Martin Scorsese, and was like, not a bad idea at all. In fact, who I think would like it is Marty, and boom, boom, boom. So, what I thought it was Scorsese's movie, and he pulled Jonah Hill in because he kind of like, if he puts on the weight and grows out the hair, he kind of fits the vibe. But, I know Jonah Hill has like been spotted in like some Steelies. I don't know if he's like really ahead, but
or
if he's
fashion forward. Right.
Or if he's fashion forward, right? Like, but
he's probably ahead, but other heads that aren't as well off like to come up with these excuses to make some heads not as authentic or genuine as others, and they're gonna call him a Trustafarian. But I bet he probably listens to the fucking music. Like, yeah, he probably didn't see Jerry on tour. He's a young guy, but
he wouldn't be a Trustafarian because his parents aren't paying for him
or whatever.
He's a rich motherfucker.
Well, he has connections. I mean, he does have connections, and it sounds like, right, in some ways, it is an interesting story that he kind of sparked the idea more than Scorsese kind of.
Maybe I could be Jerry.
Yeah, well, here, let me throw it back. Let me throw it back at you. Who else? Like, who would you cast as Jerry? Right? Like, I'm not. I don't know. I don't know.
Mark,
I'm firmly on. I got two choice. Number one, I would not make the movie.
They should do the CGI like they do for the Hulk, but just make him fat Jerry, like get the black shirt and the
hologram Jerry, like Tupac at speaking of Coachella. Yeah, you just do a hologram Jerry.
They could do. Did any of you see that Bob Dylan movie? I'm Not There, where they had like a bunch of different people playing Bob. Yeah, they could do one of those.
But it was like Kate Blanchett was playing Bob.
Though. Yeah.
Some sort of weird thing.
Horatio Sands. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Horatio Sands is perfect.
But gotta be the Jerry.
But like, here's the thing: is the only qualification that you can put on the weight. Like, what else qualifies you to play Jerry? Like
your willingness to cut your finger off.
Yeah, no, exactly. How are they? They're gonna put a prosthetic one of these.
Or do they just paint it green and let the computer
green screen? Yeah, exactly.
You just paint your finger green.
Here's one biopic to me that worked, which I don't think that many do for musicians in particular, especially for bands like the Dead, who have such an incredibly deep, knowledgeable like following that it will please no one, because it's really not going to appeal to no one, because their story has been told. We all know it, the audience that's there for it. And so all we're doing is going, at least for me, it's just a hard thing to kind of wrap my head around. So I'm kind of pro no more Jerry's. Like, I really don't. Well, I'm like, let's not let Mayer be Jerry anymore. Let's not like anybody.
It was kind of shitty after Fare Thee Well, where we all felt like we had this like closure and the special moment. They announced fucking what's his face?
Yeah,
the new Jerry, like 2 weeks later. It was so fucked up. They were like, Fare Thee Well, the last Dead show. Oh, but John Mayer coming this fall to a theater near you.
That's a sketch move, but that's a whole nother. We just ticked off like half.
I don't know, man. But they did this shit with like fucking Queen and with like a lot of bands recently.
Yeah, I think
like Bruce Springsteen and the Dead is in that conversation.
They got a guy
we don't own the Dead, right? Like it's the world's band. Like I feel like sometimes heads are like, oh, it's ours, you can't have it. But they're a part of the history.
It's a great
of music.
Point.
Fair. But okay, I'll go back to my point about a biopic. Ray worked because Jamie Foxx is one hell of a musician. So part of me is like, Jerry has a level of musicianship. I'll try to get that out right. But like, where he really like, it's going to be hard to emulate. I don't just Jonah Hill play a guitar. Does he strum? Is it we're going to be like,
well, they can use stunt doubles, man? They'll get some really good guitar player, focus it on his fingers. But that's the thing. You don't have faith in Martin Scorsese, whatever. Marty, you don't have faith in Marty.
Marty.
Our guy Marty.
To me, it's less about the music and more about being able to capture the intangibles, right? Like, there was a whimsical nature to Jerry, and there was also this like very, to me, like kind of this very learned, but also like almost brooding in its like, he was almost like kind of an ominous figure to me for all of his joviality. And I think his health maybe did not do much to change that perception for me. But I always felt like, because he was the natural leader of the band, but because he was the natural leader of the band, he played a role that I feel like maybe he wasn't best suited for. Personally,
he never wanted that. He didn't want anybody looking to him for leadership. He's like, fuck that.
Correct.
That's why he stopped speaking from stage. I mean, he just did stop saying words, because not only the band, that's one dynamic, but then there's the
hitman story that he thought there was a hitman from the CIA in the audience that was going to kill him.
But what Jake's describing is exactly why I'm not worried about Jonah's ability to act or not, because really what makes a great movie is a great story. And the Grateful Dead have a great story, and they have a lot of other really good stories around the great story. They have a tragic story too, right? Like it's great and tragic. So
what would you, if you had to pick like a story arc for your movie about the Dead, like what story, or about Jerry, what story do you tell? Like, I'm curious.
Right?
Like, do you tell about like the rise of the band? Do you talk about
the origin story?
You talk about interpersonal dynamics. You talk about Jerry's life, his personal life. Origin story is great, I think, but there's got to be another.
You frame it as the downfall, with flashbacks that progress sequentially through his life.
Nice.
So that you see the conflict from the first scene.
Nice.
With the drugs. Maybe it's like a minor, like a shoot up scene or whatever.
The band telling him that he has to quit.
Playing the banjo in like the back of like a fucking music shop, or when they first meet Bobby or whatever. You know what I mean? And like you have these flashbacks, but it has to be centered around Jerry, and I think it has to be framed by the end of his life. And then at the end, you could show live footage of, the Dead crowd, and then the modern iterations of it, right? and how his legacy has grown. So it gives you the feels at the end of it. It's like after all of the conflict about not being the Messiah, or what are they doing, or everything, it just grew and continued to grow long after he died. I think that's a brilliant story.
To me, that's the most interesting part, and I would love your take on this. Any of you guys, like, do the role of kind of what I would describe as the legacy projects of the Grateful Dead, right? So you've got Phil and Friends, sure, and you've got Dead and Company, sure. You've also got J-Rad, and so just before I don't want to cut you off, I just want to get my question out. Do you guys think that it helps the legacy of the Dead? It spreads the Dead to more people? Do you think that it tarnishes the unique and special nature of what the Dead themselves had? Do you think that it cheapens the status of Jerry by showing that, like, John Mayer does a pretty good Jerry? What is your take on how the current incarnation? I mean, no, he does. I saw your eye roll, Wook. Like, I know he doesn't do a good Jerry, but like,
people say
somebody
that is in the lexicon now, right? Like, there are some people that say that.
I call it estimate the profit. That's how I feel about it.
Well, listen, I think it's easy to sound like Jerry if you're playing at half speed.
Right, but just
John Kay. I like John Kay and Further. I thought Further was the best one out of all the incarnations.
Mm-hmm.
But how can it not be good for the legacy? Because otherwise the legacy dies. Like, I hate to say it, but like, you need new people to find your music. You need people that have never had the opportunity to see you live because they weren't even born yet to fall in love with your music. And these days, I don't know that just albums alone would be enough to really put gas on the growth of a legacy. I think the fact that new generations are seeing Dead and Co. are enlightening them to what happened,
But okay, so to me, there's kind of, and to take it to like fish lexicon, what you've seen after Jerry died is like this progression, right, of like a 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 scenario to me, where like now we're in, to me, a point where yes, it is a level of exploitative to me, and here's why. If to me, we've just been talking about, if we're talking about the downfall of the Dead and kind of the bad things that started to happen, it started to happen in stadiums, right?
Yep.
It started to get to be not feeling like the Dead, not feeling like a community, not feeling like, feeling like a little bit of a cash grab. They're honestly, the band members should not probably be up there. They should be getting help, not making money for this machine, and so it got to feel like that. And part of me is, you're just emulating that as the Dead and Company, right? Which the way they're doing it now. Now, if you go back to like when Jerry originally died, I felt that it still had that spirit, for me, I'd like to see it live on, Tim, more in like a, bar / festival scene where
you see that stuff at Dead and Co shows. Because what I've seen at the Dead and Co shows I've been to is like a high school reunion. It's a bunch of old heads that get together and get to see, 2/3 or 2/5 or whatever, or 3/5.
Every time I've seen them.
And they get to relive the memories and the moments that Jake was talking about. Those memories, like at the show or at the festival. It's just getting back together. Like, we're, as predominantly a fish-focused group right here, right, with wook+live, we're very, very lucky that we're still fucking doing this with the original 4. And people can argue 3.0, 4.0 is not the same as back in the day, but fuck that. Like, we're still doing it. I feel bad I'm not a head first, right? Like, I love the Grateful Dead, but it's after, like, I came in through the Fish Avenue. So I feel terrible for like the heads that lost the band. Like, I'm glad that they could go out and they're also, the last thing I'll say, and I'll step back, is they're doing justice too with, like, they're not bringing a slacker, right? Like, they brought it, like, John Mayer is an incredible musician. O'Teal, I mean, I know Phil's still alive, but like, jamming with O'Teal is a fucking phenomenal musician. Like, I don't know.
And Clemente's great too. I mean,
Clemente, fucking love Clemente.
Would you rather see, former members of the band playing their songs than seeing like J-Rad or a knockoff version playing their songs? That's where it's tough for me, because I prefer to see the band. Like the Dead's my favorite band ever, and I was fortunate to see a bunch of shows through high school and college, and I loved every second of it, and I still love that music. I still love it, and so for me, going to a Dead & Co show, it's not the same, but yes, I still get those feelings. I still get to be around the people I love. I still get to hear the music I love. And like those forum shows a couple of years ago, getting to hear a Viola Lee, like I know I never would have got to hear a Viola Lee, but getting to hear that finally and then doing the cold open and stuff of it, that was awesome for me. Like I loved, and the Dark Star and some of that second set shit, like it was fun. And you're like, man, like I never would have got this at the end of the Dead when it was. Maybe in the 60s and 70s I would have got it. I wasn't around then, obviously, but to me, getting that now and getting that feeling, it felt good. It still fills your soul with like goodness. And that's what music's all about. It's how it makes you feel, and like feeling your soul and like how you feel in the moment and what you're getting out of it. And I still get a lot out of it. And I'll go see DSO and I'll go see, J-Rad and stuff and have a great time because again, it's music and it makes me feel good and I like it. But if I can go up there and see Bobby and Phil or like, those guys still playing up there and playing and doing what they love, it makes me feel good and I like it. And, it's all subjective and everybody can have their opinion and say what they want, but I'm in and I enjoy it. And, and it's nice to see like people like younger people that get a chance to finally see them that just like me never got to see him ever, like some people who never got the chance to see him in the 90s and stuff, even when it was falling apart. And to get that moment of it now and catch that star now, it probably feels good for them too. And, do what you love, do what you like, enjoy what you want and do what you love. So I'm in for it. And
fuck anyone that says otherwise.
Yeah,
I think hey, you have your opinions. You can, I'm not gonna say fuck that, but I don't agree with it necessarily. But you have your opinions and you can say that, and that's how you feel, and that's fine. It's the same thing with Fish. Like there's good Fish shows, there's bad Fish shows. It's all subjective. People are like, oh, they sound like crap. Whereas you could go and have the greatest time of the show and be like, that was amazing, and people are like, no, that show sucked. You're like, yeah, but it was great to me. So.
I really wish we made the imaging for T-Rants or T-Strong opinions. I'm like, this has been a T-Rant. I agree with you, I love it.
No, I think that we as a community gatekeep far too much, usually in self-interest, because like if fewer people like our bands, then it's easier for us to go see our bands. But I think it's like, this is a great point. Like, yeah, the people who didn't have the opportunity to see the Dead, to see any incarnation of the Dead these days is a blessing, 100%. And I kind of, while you were talking, was thinking it'd be like, God forbid if Fish were in a similar situation, and then in a couple of, Deadheads complain a lot, yeah, for sure. But like, God forbid, like Fish were in a similar situation, and there was a Tab show. You go see the Tab show, and Trey was going to play, First Tube Sand, etc. You would be ecstatic, and even if it was just one of the original guys, And so I think, you have to keep that in mind when you think about people who grew up with the scene.
But respectfully, I think that's like seeing like Jerry's band, like the Jerry Garcia. I mean, like, what if like Trey was the one that was no longer part, alive, and like fucking Mike and Paige went on tour with the bunch, like I feel like that wouldn't be as well received. Like I think there is an
well, so I'm very cynical. I think that the Dead and Fish, but Fish is a little less obvious about it. If the Dead is a huge and obnoxious money making machine right now. Like you could buy a Grateful Dead shirt at the fucking Gap,
Target,
like,
at Target,
they've licensed the hell out of it. And like, in a way, more power to them. But also, like, I was thinking when we were talking about Dead & Co. and like Jerry, how pissed I think he would be to see, like Live Nation presents Dead & Co. at Citi Field, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that the whole vibe is just not very Jerry anymore.
But would he also be glad that they were still, would he also be glad that they were still playing music and still playing their music and still
both
doing
things can be true, right? Like you can be bummed at how corporate it's become, but also still be happy that you have something at all.
Right, exactly. And like Kev brought up earlier, like I never got to see Journey live, but like listening to that new Journey singer, he sounds just like him, and it's amazing. And like I would almost go see them just to rock out to hear that dude play. And again, you're in the moment hearing it, and you're like, "Fuck!" It's like the rest of the band and that guy. Why not?
Stop believing, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Little Feat over the past decade, when they were still doing shows in their other incarnation.
With the
So I was like a band.
Kickstarter?
Yeah, exactly. But like even a band like that, like I was stoked to go see Little Feat, even though it's obviously not the same. It was a great time, and I, especially after that Fish show, had a really fun time with that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
So
I would
the
say this
spirit,
too, like
the
who
spirit.
thinks
Wait.
Jerry Band?
Before either one of you guys go on another Midwest rant, T and fam, we are at our hour mark. I hate to say it.
To be continued.
To
in
be
the
continued.
thread.
Jake, we
Yeah.
should have you on again soon because
I would love to come back anytime, you guys. This was
It was
great.
a pleasure, man.
Thank you for having me.
Going
Like
to the
and
credits, I want to give
subscribe.
context. This is actually from the first time you were on wook+. So
Oh no.
I'll see you guys.
Happy Wednesday.
Love you, Jay.
We're all varying levels of wook, right? It's like a wook spectrum. And I think there's a lot of negative connotation about it outside of our, immediate focus. But we're kind of taking that back and realizing that you can be a professional and have your family and whatever, but still wook out when it's appropriate. And I think that we should celebrate that, right? Like, why not?
I think that like a wook really is just like the true side of you that is begging to come out when you get online, right? And some people let that wook out 100%, and some people only let it out 20%. That's okay. You're still letting your freak flag fly, but definitely a spectrum. But everyone's got a little bit of wook in them, and so I appreciate what you guys are doing.